Back now on America's Forum, and you see the article from our parent website, Newsmax.com. A federal judge stalls President Obama's executive amnesty action. This move gives a group of 26 states time to pursue a lawsuit that would permanently stop that amnesty order. Joining us now via telephone, Tom Fitton, the President of Judicial Watch. He'll go in depth with us, and we're happy to welcome back as well Larry Elder from Newsmax LA. So, Tom, take us through the legal proceedings. This is temporary? Really, how does it work?
Well, you think of your federal courts as having more or less three distinct levels. And the first level is the district court, and above that are the appellate courts, and then above that is the United States Supreme Court. And in this case, you had the 26 states go and ask a district court judge in Texas to stop, at least temporarily, President Obama's amnesty program, specifically the amnesty now, the deferred action for the parents of illegal aliens who supposedly got here when they were kids. We don't really know that, but essentially if you bring your kid here illegally, you get amnesty under this new proposal, and the judge said no, the states have the ability to challenge this in court. They do have the standing. They are being harmed. The president's directives have no basis in law, and so he issued the injunction, and we'll see what the government does next. They'll probably appeal it up to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and what happens there, I don't know, but there's a chance it won't survive up on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. But either way, the case is going forward, and it shows that the challenges in court to Obama's new amnesty programs are substantial and substantive, and it ought to give pause to, frankly, the gang in Washington, D.C. and the United States Senate that is refusing to let funding of the Department of Homeland Security go forward because it doesn't provide, it doesn't allow for President Obama to use tax money to provide amnesty to people that he has no legal basis to do.
Tom, the judge said that the order may have violated the Take Care clause of the Constitution. For those of us who are not constitutional lawyers, explain the legal argument here.
Well, you'll have to find a constitutional lawyer to get the final say on that, but we all can read the Constitution, and if I recall, if I'm paraphrasing from memory, the president takes an oath, and the goal of the executive branch is to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And I don't know how anyone could think that the president's nullification of our immigration law would fall under that category, and to allow 4 or 5 million illegal aliens just in this category alone to get work permits and stay here legally and perhaps even become citizens obviously is contrary to law, and it flies in the face of any sensible interpretation that he's upholding his oath of office, and I think that's what the judge is referencing.
And we talked about taking care to see that the laws are faithfully enforced. I've got to tell you, this administration is taking care to offer its political spin. Listen to a portion of the statement about the court decision. The White House says, quote, "It wrongly prevents these lawful common sense policies from taking effect." But over and beyond that, Tom, in the minute that remains, you are saying at Judicial Watch that the spending related to this amnesty could be a direct violation of something called the Anti-Deficiency Act. Explain that to us.
It's a basic law that Congress has to make sure that the government ain't spending money it doesn't have or legal authority to do. And the Anti-Deficiency Act says that unless there's an appropriation, and specifically there's an appropriation that bans it, or a law that bans the spending, you can't spend the money. So if there's no appropriation, there's no legal basis to do these types of things, like provide amnesty for 4 or 5 million people or nullify the entire immigration legal system, then it's banned by law, and there are civil and criminal penalties. The General Accountability Office can investigate that and draw conclusions. And in the case of the Bergdahl release, for instance, there was found that he violated the law not notifying Congress when he released those Taliban prisoners in exchange for Bowie Bergdahl. And that was a violation of the Anti-Deficiency Act. if you're a liberal, think back to the Reagan days when you all fantasized about putting Reagan in jail for violating the Boland Amendment, restricting sales and support to the Contras and the rebels in Nicaragua. The fantasy was that Reagan violated the Boland Amendment and should go to jail.
Understood. We appreciate the historical perspective as well as the here and now. Tom Fitton and Larry Elder return to talk about what's afoot in Florida.
Now, I also think we need to make voting easier. It should be easier. In other countries, it's easier. Why should voting be so difficult? Tuesday? Who thought that up? I mean, the fact is that there's wide variation in when people can vote. You can't necessarily register to vote on Election Day. I've often asked myself why you should have to register to vote. Why shouldn't it be automatic? You know?
Sure. Hey, why register to vote? Come vote anytime, and why keep track of it? Democrat Congressman Keith Ellison of Minnesota with, in my opinion, a very disturbing point. Meantime, a federal court has issued a shocking ruling pertaining to Florida. That ruling, according to Judicial Watch, prohibits the Sunshine State from removing illegal aliens and other non-citizens from its voter rolls. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton stays with us via phone, and Larry Elder is also in from Newsmax LA to continue the conversation. So, Tom, how did you guys uncover this?
Well, we're watching the courts, and when it comes to election integrity, the Justice Department can't be trusted, and the big media has. It sounds like the Speaker, Mr. Ellison, that you just highlighted. Who picked Tuesday? That sort of lunacy isn't supported by the American people. They want clean elections, and they want one election day. They don't want people voting over a series of months. It doesn't really make much sense. And they certainly want voter ID. And they don't want aliens on the rolls who aren't allowed to be there to begin with and certainly can't vote. And in Florida, the district court had thrown out a Justice Department challenge and challenged by liberal activist groups against a program in Florida that would have removed systematically aliens on the voting rolls. Both illegal aliens and legal aliens end up on the voting rolls, and obviously if that happens, they can vote. And the appellate court, when it was appealed by the activist groups, said 2-1, incredibly, that within 90 days of an election, if you're an alien or an illegal alien, you can't be removed by Florida from the voting rolls in a systematic way. And that obviously isn't the law. It's terrible, an interpretation of the law. And months have gone by, and the Florida state government hasn't appealed this as it should have, in our view, to the Supreme Court, asking the Supreme Court to rule that, to review that lower court ruling. We've asked anyone in Florida who's concerned about this to contact the governor, Rick Scott, the Attorney General, Pam Biondi, and other officials there to let them know what concerns they have about the failure of the state officials so far to stand for clean elections. And as Florida goes, it's a close game down there electorally, and you don't want illegal voters on the rolls that can be used by any party to steal an election, and that's what's at risk here: stolen elections in Florida, and given Florida's importance in the Electoral College, stolen elections in the United States in terms of presidential campaigns.
Tom, what's your analysis of why the Florida Attorney General has not appealed this? My feeling is that maybe the governor was in a tight re-election race and didn't want to rock the boat and told the AG to back off. What's your analysis?
I don't know. I mean, it seems to me if you want to appeal it and it's not happening, you go public about it. And it's up to her to explain why she hasn't appealed it. It's up to the governor to explain why he hasn't appealed it. My understanding is the governor is the key decision maker there, and I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to offend the Hispanic vote, and they see dirty elections as a way to encourage Hispanics to vote Republican or vote for Rick Scott. I don't know what the thinking is, but it's certainly not one that ought to be has anything to do with clean elections. it's politics, but it's not a clean election, so you never know what's in the head of a politician. So my encouragement would be for anyone concerned in Florida, especially, to contact the governor's office directly and let him know what you think.
And I bet it's going
And
to be a whole
hopefully
lot of
there's
phone
an
calls.
understanding. We thought it might be due today, but there may be 2 weeks wiggle room.
We'll keep an
where
eye
they're
on
able
that,
to get,
Tom
the
Fitton. We
appeal.
have to take our leave. Thank you for your time. Larry and I come back to talk more about illegal immigration after this.